Hello and welcome back, everyone. Flavour Friday. Today we are going to be going over Japan flavor as part of Tinto Talk number 27, detailing the flavor of the upcoming game with the codename Project Caesar. Now, we have played a little bit of Japan, so we will have some slight commentary on that, but for the most part we didn't really make too deep a run, but we will be commentating on kind of the balance or the features or maybe the advantages of some of the stuff that Japan has to offer as we read through this. Now, before we get into it, there's a little bit of a controversy in our community regarding whether or not this game is in fact titled Europa Universalis 5. And you guys are pretty mixed bag on this, but we have come to the conclusion that it's not titled Europa Universalis 5, mainly because it doesn't pass the smell test. Why would you title it Europa Universalis 5? Done a bunch of presser about it, but it's obviously titled Rivals Pursue a Vain Love. Now, with that in mind, we're going to be taking a look at the game. Hello and welcome to another edition of Tinto Flavor. Today we will continue the Japanese theme by taking a look at the flavor of Japan. It's called sushi, and Japanese clans, as well as the situations of the Nambukocho, sorry for the pronunciations, and this is Sengoku Jidai. Also always interesting, Roger doesn't actually name Europa Universalis 5 in any of his intros, and everyone else does. So, continuing on, after a long period under the Kamakura shogunate, the islands of Japan were plunged again into war during the Mongol invasions. Luckily, they had the divine wind. This debilitated the authority of the shogunate to the point that Yamato Go-Daigo Tenno was able to wrestle control of the country away from him. However, his intentions of restoring imperial rule were not to come to fruition, as his former ally, that's foreshadowing, former ally Shogun Ashikaga Takuiji established a new Japanese shogunate. Now Shogunate Ashikaga rules over the country after Go-Daigo Tenno fled the capital and established himself in Yoshino. The struggle between the central government and the fleeing emperor is far from over, and we have here the shogunate. Interestingly, we do see a couple of some of you guys have made some commentary on this stuff. We do see a couple different cultures in here, and some of you have thought that, hey, there really shouldn't be different cultures in here. I don't really have very much commentary on that, other than I thought it was interesting that some of you guys were giving some feedback in that regard. Taking a look at things, though, we have a large population, and I think population is just an incredibly strong mechanic, just at a base level. It really gives you a strong amount of income just by itself, at least from what we've been able to see, and then, of course, allows you to ramp up and continue to build buildings that can be populated, whereas, of course, if you run out of workable pops, this is going to be a significant throttle for you, and you're going to have to make adjustments. We can see these are the estates of Japan. We did do recently a video on crown power and estates and this type of stuff, and taking a look at here, we can see that 13% crown power is not exactly what you're looking for. There are a couple of estate privileges in here, one of which, I think this one, gives you minus 20 control in all rural areas. Most of your areas start rural rather than urban, and another one of these gives you minus 5 control everywhere in the samurai. And so starting things off in terms of estate privileges, you are actually just in a really, really rough spot because you have really low control, and so you're going to have really low crown power, and you're going to be suffering some significant malices. But you can use the samurai to push through at least a good chunk of things and get several fairly good parliaments, because they do have a ton of power. But overall, your situation is uncomfortable, and it's going to require 180 stability to slot out both of those privileges, unless you manage to get some sort of bonus towards getting rid of them, or if there's some flavor for getting rid of some of those privileges. Taking a look, we also have this unique reform, cost of the appease elites action, which is part of Japan's flavor, cultural influence 0.2, possible government reforms +1, so this is free, but you have to keep it slot in, expected cost of court minus 1%. Fine, that seems good, or it seems better than nothing. Not crazy, but it's also not occupying a slot of ours. Here we have Japanese clan, which is going to be for the other clans and imperial courts, other than the shogunate. Noble estate satisfaction plus 5%, maximum tax for noble's estate plus 30%. Wow-wow-wee-wa. Now, Generally speaking, I think the nobility kind of gives you the third most, but I think the nobility probably starts off generally pretty strong for Japan. I think they might have some stuff to give you extra nobles, and we'll try and keep an eye on their unique buildings if those specifically employ nobles, because that will be an interesting distinction that maybe separates them apart, and maybe they generally have a stronger nobility throughout. And if that is the case, then being able to tax them more is something that's kind of useful. Extra army tradition here, and extra government reforms. Fantastic. So it's a free. And you know what they say? If it's free, it's for me. Here we have the Japanese imperial family, major reforms, so you can only have one of these at a time, which is going to give crown power plus 20%. Normally, you can only really get 10% on reforms kind of early on, so this is going to be very, very nice. I don't think that started slot in, or yeah, this didn't start slot in as far as we could tell, so that's definitely something we would want to try and get our crown power over that 20 threshold. We see noble estate satisfaction equilibrium plus 5%, maximum tax for noble's estate, very nice, very similar to the other one, except we also have diplo rep plus 5. Japanese countries have some common advances, and some of the individual clans also have some unique ones. That is crazy. We didn't take a look at the clans at all. That is wild that there are some unique ones for individual clans. That's so crazy. But here are some examples. Bushido, which gives 5% discipline. I wonder if they have multiple 5% discipline. When we had a little bit of an investigation and we were looking specifically for discipline on on unique advances, the only country that had 2 that we had seen was the Ottomans. But this excludes, I think the unique advances excludes cultural advances, so there's probably some other countries that get multiple, that get more than one discipline, and I'm curious if Japan is one of those, or if one of the clans of Japan is one of those. Continuing on, we got headhunting, prestige from land battles, plus 10%. That's going to be kind of nice, but also if you're getting a lot of prestige from land battles, you tend to cap out, is kind of my feeling, but I guess I haven't watched it super closely. Maybe that's not the case. It really feels if you get in a long, drawn-out war, it's that you tend to just cap out prestige. We see prestige decay minus 0.1 for codified Bushido. This will make it cost less for you to keep it, at a maxed out level, and if you can't afford to keep it at a maxed out level, it'll keep it up there. So this will help you with culture, which incidentally is going to, I think, be somewhat, well, it's going to be relevant for integrating other cultures, but Japan is interesting insofar as they have a lot of language power from Japanese, because they're using it as their language, as their common language, their market language, and their liturgical language. And I was trying to think if prestige and culture relates to this, because prestige generally helps you with artists, which help you with culture. But I can't remember exactly what informs language. I think culture has some importance of it, but language power. Here we have the clans of Tosa, some unique ones. Try to guess which clans they are for. I don't know. Is it Tosa? Or is it Sowat? Perhaps it's another anagram. Here we have control of the Izumi Sea. Do we have the territories of our clan? Oh, it doesn't relieve, or it doesn't give us any hints in terms of the description. I have no idea who that might be. Trade maritime advantage plus 25%. I wonder if you form Japan, though, if you lose this. Here we have unlikely alliances, diplomatic capacity plus 20% here, which is going to, overall, our feeling has been that diplo capacity probably isn't as pressured a resource as it should be, but that obviously can change. And if it does change and it does feel pressured, it's actually going to be one of the very best resources. But plus 20% we see here. We see uninspiring clan, army morale plus 10%. Okay, fair enough. Jeez, which one's the uninspiring? Comment below. Is your bloodline weak? Call now. Here we have the Furin Kazan, monthly army tradition, 0.05. And so, okay. This seems pretty good. Let's talk about how the clans behave. Let me start by saying that our recommended country to play in Japan is generally the country of Japan itself. as the clans, being building-based countries, play quite a bit different than regular tags, and thus are rather suited to experienced players that want to try a different and more challenging gameplay style or game style. We did not try the clans. That being said, let's take a look at how they work. Being building-based countries, they are of course dependent on their buildings. Here's some of them. We see the Shoen, which is going to give trade advantage and trade capacity and a little bit of manpower. Actually, that's a decent chunk of manpower. This is actually a very strong, a nice looking building for 100 gold. It's also going to give gold to owner, so it'll replace itself in value in 200 months, not including the trade advantages and the trade capacity, which are going to generate their own value. Looks like there's a requirement to build it somewhere. In addition to, it must be in either rural or towns. Notably, this is kind of an interesting one. Oh, and you also must have good relations with the person who's building it. So if you have bad relations with the shogunate, you won't be able to build there. Unlimited levels. Notably, you can't build it in cities. I don't think I've seen too many of buildings of this sort where you can build it in rural or a town, but not a city. There's no banner with the three, Roman numeral 3. Which is kind of a little bit of a curiosity. I'm struggling to remember a single other building that is of that nature, which isn't to say there aren't other buildings, but this is the only one I can think of. But the idea, I'm sure, is that they can't really generate leverage over really urbanized cities in Japan, which kind of creates an interesting motivation for you if you're playing the shogunate, which is if you want to brick these buildings, you can turn places into cities and it'll just destroy all the buildings, which is kind of a little bit of an interesting interplay there. Here we have the Yamashiro, which is, okay, we're also trying to keep an eye. These are peasants, which is fine. These are soldiers, which is a member of the peasant estate. We see, again, the exact same kind of requirements here. Can recruit regiments here. So now we have a building-based country and the ability to recruit regiments. This one only gives us manpower, can't recruit regiments. We can recruit regiments here. A little bit of manpower to the owner and a little bit of gold to owner. The owner being not the owner of the location, but the owner of the building, as far as I'm understanding it here. So you can slowly develop up your economy. The next ones are exclusive for the imperial court countries and the non-imperial clans, respectively. So I think these are the higher tier ones. I think there's 2 imperial courts, or something like this. Okay, we see that we can build these in any location, regardless of level of urbanization, but do need the happiness and whatever this green checkmark requirement is. And this one, it just looks like a better version of this, eh? Better version of the Yamashiro, because the difference is you can build it in a city, unless it's, yeah, okay. That seems to be the distinction here. And then here we have a building that is going to give 50 nobles. So remember when we were talking about, oh, and this Gosho is also 50 nobles. This was soldiers, this is nobles. And so this is a little bit interesting because you have these clans that are samurai, right, that are building locations that will create more jobs for nobles. So this will increase noble promotions in all your locations if you're playing the shogunate. And this is interesting because you will probably have a stronger nobility / samurai than most other tags, because most other tags really don't accumulate. There's not too many buildings that you build multiple levels of that employ nobles. Although this notably doesn't, you can't build multiple levels of this, so maybe that's not a spammable one. Same with this. But if a lot of different clans are building these things, you might actually get really high noble density. And the number of pops you have is the driver of power, and so maybe the samurai just in general will have quite a lot of power relative to like nobility power as a consequence of some of these buildings employing up nobles, which is kind of an interesting play pattern. I haven't seen so far in terms of just general trajectory of play. It seems to be that the burghers just acquire like a huge lion's share of the power over the course of time, because as you eco more, you increase burghers, but you don't really increase any other pop type, and so the burghers eventually are just kind of really dominant. But if you have a bunch of clans building these, then you're going to have a little bit more on the nobility. We see another one of these buildings, again, in any type of location, so including cities, some of the higher tier ones. Okay, and another important building that cannot be built manually, but will instead be built automatically when a clan is assigned to be Shugo of a province. See yesterday's Tinto talk for that mechanic. Man, I can't remember can't remember the Shugo mechanic, but we see here 100 nobles. So if you have clans and you are signing shugos of a lot of provinces, now we're starting to develop, quite a bit of nobles. Nobles, like on a per pop basis, they get the most from their population in terms of power, I do believe. Here we see trade advantage 0.5, capacity 0.5, can't recruit regiments here, manpower to owner, gold to owner. Okay, so fair enough. The provincial governorships are assigned to rule over many provinces of Japan, and this position gives great power and influence to the family assigned to them. So some clans will be Shugo. As you can see, both their economy and troops will depend directly on the buildings that they own, so their strategy is to expand their presence by building more of those buildings and taking the ones that are owned by other clans in war. So you acquire their buildings, you fight, and you eventually usurp the shogunate. Now that we mentioned war, it's time to talk about the 2 civil war situations in the game, and the loud car outside. Let's start with the Nanbokucho, pronunciations, Jidai, a situation that starts out at the beginning of the game. Initially, all countries are assigned to support either the northern or the southern court, according to their historical alliances, but when the situation starts, countries will get the following event. We can stand firm, or you can switch sides, or better to not commit. With this, the clans will be able to choose to switch their loyalties to declare neutrality, although for obvious reasons, neither the 2 courts nor the shogunate are able to change their allegiances. So you cannot change your allegiance if you are one of the 2 sides. The whole country will thus be divided into 2 sides. Here we see southern court and northern court. And here we can see the red and red. There is a little bit of red here. The green is, I believe, the leaders of the court, and the blue and yellow are either southern or northern court, and the red, I think, is also leader of the northern court. So one of these is northern court, another is the southern court. Even after the situation has started, countries can choose to change their loyalty, not only via the actions of the situation panel, but also through events that will fire during the situation for that. So maybe you play diplomat if you are the leader of either the northern or the southern court. Besides that, there will also be other events firing with options of getting casus bellis, or even declaring wars, making it so that chaos is ensured. One important thing to note is that as long as the non-Bokucho Jidai situation is active, countries will not be able to declare war on others supporting the same side as them. This seems reasonable. If you attack another clan supporting the same side as you, you will have to do it after the situation is resolved, or choose to change your loyalty, of course. Yeah, this is something we did as Milan, which is, as Milan, there was like a situation for like reining in control of all the Italian states for the emperor, and it allows you to get CBs on the side that is like pro-Italy versus pro-HRE. And what we did is we kind of gobbled up all the one side that we wanted, and then we switched sides to the other side. That is expensive. To end the situation, one of the 2 courts must be forced to disappear through a special peace treaty called Forced Imperial Abdication. So we just had a civil war, but what about second breakfast? Whether is the non-Bokucho Jidai situation resolves successfully or not, an even bigger civil war will be looming. The Sengoku Jidai can happen after 1400 if there's no shogun, or the shogun is in a weak position, low legitimacy, or stab. There's like a lot of the unique situations, I think, that are... It seems like there's a lot of unique situations that fire when you have low legitimacy or stab, such that if you have unique flavor, avoiding this can be a pretty good means of trying to keep yourself in a good spot. But remember, as Japan, we have 2 really bad estate privileges given out at the start of the game. You have to take a 90 stab hit to get rid of them, so it's going to be really hard to get rid of them and reform, and also not lower your stability so that you can trigger this. So you might just have to fight through the Sengoku if you want to reform, which would be nice in terms of flavor. Or there are more than 6 wars currently active amongst the clans. Oh, okay, if you just fight a lot, it just starts the Sengoku. As such, a strong shogun will be able to avoid falling into it if they manage to keep their children in check. Okay. Once it starts, the stronger and bigger clans will automatically transform into landed daimyo, with the rest receiving an event with the option to also become landed at the cost of opinion to the shogunate. So you're going to lose a bunch of locations in terms of yeah, you're just going to lose a bunch of locations if you're playing the Shogun, which seems like it will be a bad thing for you as Japan descends into chaos. Becoming landed will have many consequences. For once, all locations in the Shogun in which they have presence with buildings will become owned by them, and they will receive a new government reform replacing the Japanese clan one. We can see that this looks similar, except we have those nobles' levy size, and the noble levies will increase with the number of noble pops, as far as I understand, which means your buildings that are giving nobles are also giving you levies at the end of the day, and so this will be nice. Even if a country does not choose to become landed with this event, there may still have the option to do so in the future, both via future events that can fire during the situation and also through the action Proclaim Independence in the Situation panel. Fair enough. We see have some of our most powerful daimyo, and then here's the actions they can proclaim independence. Improve heritage. Interesting. The actions available in the panel are slightly different for the Shogun, giving extra tools to control the many clans, both the ones that have already been already landed, and also the remaining building-based ones. We can see we can revoke land, so probably going to revoke the choicest land by the capital. I assume this is going to cost a resource that is going to make it so you can't just revoke them all, otherwise the event would probably be uninteresting. The objective of the Shogun will be thus to curb the autonomy of the clans, while the objective of the clan would be to gain sufficient power to either become the Shogun themselves or destroy the Shogunate entirely. The situation will end when there is only a single country in the Shogunate, with the exception of allowing the presence of building-based emperor, or when the Shogun has managed to reduce all the other clans to just a single location building-based country. Reduce all other clans to just a single location building-based country. I assume that one is themselves? That's the language, once you get rid of all the landed guys from being landed. With the non-Bokucho Jidai, there will be some events that fire during the situation, giving countries options to gain casus bellis, declare wars, and there are also some event chains of interaction between the Shogun and the clans, when the former uses the action Summon to Court. We did see a little bit of, we didn't play deep enough to see this Sengoku when we were playing a little bit as Japan, but we did see it several times, playing from the perspective of Korea, because we did a couple Korea runs, and so it was interesting to see just dotting the entire Japanese island with a whole bunch of daimyo. And that's all for today. With almost 150 countries in the Shogunate, yikes, that's a lot. There's much more to unpack in this, but this is as far as we can show here. As an extra treat, because so many of you asked about it, here's an updated view of the terrain map for Japan with an special effect for the cherry blossom during spring. Wow, really? Very cool. I hope it only spawns during 1 week, so you have to perfectly catch it, because that's how it is. Next week, Pavio will be back, so I'll leave you in his hands. I still don't know what next schedule is for next week, sorry. Very suspicious, very suspect. They're looking for new things to perhaps... They're looking for... You can tell we're onto them, that it's not titled Europa Universalis 5, which, incidentally, you can wish those on Steam. It is instead Rivals Pursue of Vain Love. Of course, a much more reasonable name for a game. Except as far as anagrams go, that one actually sounds good and would be a reasonable name for a game. Probably not a grand strategy game. Let me know if you think it would be a great one. But other than that, you guys have a Flavor Friday.